So many companies will ask in a job interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But if you would throw the question back at them and say, well, where do you see me? Like, what opportunities are you giving me? Where will my career be in 5 years? Right? Nobody thinks to answer that question.
Welcome to the Hired Hub podcast, your ultimate guide to mastering the complexities of remote work and pushing your career forward.
Whether you're tuning in from the busy streets of Latin America or any corner of the globe, we're here to give you tools and insights to succeed in today's dynamic job market. I'm your host, Gaby Morales.
And I am your co-host, Jess Torres. If you're a recent graduate eager to leave your mark or a seasoned pro looking to redirect your career, you can join us as we explore the endless possibilities of remote work and career growth.
Get ready to unlock your full potential with the Hired Hub podcast.
Hey everyone! Today we want to take you on a journey inspired by real-life stories.
Imagine Sarah, a young professional feeling stuck in her 9-to-5 job, dreaming of a career that aligns with her passions and allows her to work from anywhere.
Frustrated with the traditional job search process, she stumbles upon Shaina Keren, a career consultant with a knack for helping people like Sarah unlock their true potential. Fast forward a few months and Sarah is not only working remotely for her dream company, but also thriving in her newfound career.
On this episode of the Hired Hub, we're going to speak to Shaina Keren, the mastermind behind it all, to get valuable tips on how people like Sarah can get their dream job and how businesses benefit from happy employees.
But before we continue, as usual, we want to know your opinion. We recently asked our listeners on LinkedIn, do you believe working with a career coach can improve your chances of landing the right job? We gave you two options and you guys answered in the following order from most to least voted. First, yes, offer guidance with 78%. And second, no, I prefer solo with 22%. I think this conversation with Shaina will open our eyes for people that think that it's not that important. We have really good and valuable insights to talk about this. So, Gaby, what do you think of this poll result?
There's always specialists for everything. And I feel like everything has a price. Okay. Like the time that you spend on doing things that maybe you're not specialized on has a value. So if you spend too much time and get stuck in your job search process, like that's still time and money that you're losing. And that you could be investing in someone that already has the keys to know exactly how to position yourself and how to give you better advice on that career search. I think a lot about it like when you're going to the doctor, like you have a headache and you can take a pill and then you know when it's simple enough that you can do it on your own, right? Some job searches are so simple that you don't need a specialist for it. But then maybe the headache continues or you notice that the jobs that you're looking for in this case are always jobs that do not satisfy you and that you can't get out of that loop. So just like when you have a headache that you can't get rid of and then you finally go to the doctor and then the doctor knows exactly what you should do and how to treat you. Well, the same does the specialist for you, like a consultant. When you're stuck and you don't even have to wait till you're stuck. Actually, you can go just like you go to the doctor preventively. You can go to the consultant to just make sure that your process is the right one. So I feel like a lot of people understand really the purpose of a career coach. But I don't know how much that translates into actually seeking that expertise and that help. But I always think it helps. Definitely. Like it helps you learn more about yourself. And again, I'm sure that this conversation with Shaina is gonna like really just provide us more insights on that.
I agree. Thank you, Gaby, for that insight.
So today we're joined by Shaina Keren, a career consultant who helps people discover and create the professional path that fit their best talents, interests, and life goals. She also advises businesses on hiring and keeping the right people in the right seat in a win-win approach to growing businesses and careers. Shaina, how are you today?
Good. Thank you. So excited to be here.
We are really happy to have you here. And so before we start, we want to know what inspired you to pursue a career in career development and coaching.
There is nothing more inspirational than being so miserable in a job. And that was my inspiration. I got to a point where I was like, this cannot be that's all a career is meant to be. Just like go dreading the job. And then on the way home every day, think about how you're going to quit and what else you should do. So that was my biggest inspiration.
Well, thank you. I know there's some people that are listening and that can relate. Shaina, but before we start advising our broader audience, those job seekers who are looking for the right job, you advise business on hiring and keeping the right people in the right seat, right? So what are those aspects, those key aspects that both like employers and candidates should consider to know if they are or have the right person in the right position?
Yeah, I love that question. And I would love to hear that question asked by more business owners. I think that there's one really easy, really big thing, which is a simple free test that anybody can take, which is just like a personality type, right? Like there's Myers-Briggs or 16 personalities. And that's just like a really basic, easy way to understand people and see some like easy things. Like if you're an introvert or an extrovert, that's like such a natural thing that, people who don't like being in a busy office or like to work at a quiet desk, that it's so easy to keep a person happy if you simply took some basic things about their personality, for example, into account. And then the other thing that I see lots of people leaving jobs over, which is a topic that I know that you have discussed on previous episodes, is the option to work remote. I get calls all the time, messages, emails from businesses who say, you work with so many people, you probably have some great candidates looking for a job. Can I tell you about the job description? I say, I'm not a recruiter, but if you want to shoot me a job description, if I happen to meet someone, and it's happened actually, where it's like, the same day you just asked me and then I just had a meeting with someone, I say like, oh, that might be good. And it's not something that I charge for, but it's something I'm happy to be able to help my clients with. And it's landed in a couple of great positions. But other times they get really hung up on silly things. Like I say, okay, you're located in the city, right? I live in New York, but an hour or two drive from Manhattan. And, so people in my area will usually be happy to go to work maybe 2-3 days a week and then work from home the other days. And there's so many companies that think that if they're not able to see their employees at a desk, that they're not going to be as productive. And I think that's like another way to the ability to keep employees by working around their needs. And that's like one easy example of that. It keeps retention so much higher.
Yeah, it's definitely a relationship that goes both ways. I feel like that has changed in the last years where businesses thought that, or we thought that the relationship between businesses and employees was like, okay, the business selects the employees and then they can discard them whenever you want. And actually that evaluation process goes both ends. I feel like both employees need and employers need to evaluate each other and see if they're the right fit. Like I was reading this book, Traction by Gino Wickman, which is a business administration, business like growth kind of.
The EOS concept.
The EOS, exactly. I love the part where it talks about the people because it says that both employee and employers, they need to evaluate the following. Like if the values align, if your core values align with the businesses. So if within those core values, you have those commodities that you're looking for, like the remote option, and, the respect towards, work-life balance, it's going to be easier for you to adapt to that job. And then on the other end, as an employer, you need to also analyze what are the core benefits that define you and look for people and evaluate people based on those core values. And then after that, it talks about the unique abilities, like being able to evaluate people's unique abilities based on their capabilities, on their willingness and experience, because you can have someone that performs great based on their willingness and experience, but maybe they're not capable for the job. Maybe they're missing some core abilities that they need to have, like in leadership or anything, and then that makes them fall short in the position that they're doing. And that I think ultimately generates frustration on both ends. And then the other thing that I think it's a big responsibility from employers is just creating very well-rounded and precise role descriptions and functions. Because
Oh yeah.
I've seen a lot in the digital world, like in this remote world, where you just hire someone and you say, I want these results, but then you're not telling them how you want them achieved within your structure, your business structure. Like you want results that you can understand ultimately. So on that, I think it's a big responsibility from the employer to know exactly what they want, and then for the employee to understand what is needed. So I think that when you're going through those candidate interviews, you need to really understand and ask to know if the position that's being offered to you or that you're trying out for is really the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just got a call like that from a client yesterday, and it was like, okay, I took this job 90 days ago, and the job description said this, and now that I've been here this long, they actually are expecting me to do this. And like, how am I supposed to react to that? Like, do I go to my manager? Do I go to the boss? Should I keep quiet? And it's scary. And that's like one of the biggest things.
But that's a great question. Like, how do you do when you are onboarded on a job that you think you know exactly what it is, and then it turns out to be something different? Like, how do you approach that with your employer?
Yeah. So my response is to actually take the job description and, write down everything that, take the actual job description and take the real job description. And that takes a bit of effort to sit and think about, okay, what is actually expected of me? What is different? And write it up. And then depending on your relationship, whether you're working in person or remote and who your direct report is, but to have it written up and in that way, like the same way that you would go in and negotiate a raise, I like to do the same thing. Like, here's where I'm at. Here's where what I'm doing, and this is the title and pay that I have, and here's what I'm actually doing. So just bring a comparison in a very non-confrontational way, and just saying, I just wanted to be clear that I'm understanding what I was hired to do. Here's what it seems like I was given. I've put together a short list of what I've actually been doing. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Can you give me some feedback on this comparison?
Amazing. Yeah, because I feel like that's a common scenario. And it happens a lot with, of course, also young employees, like people that are just starting their career, endeavors. Like they're just like starting to apply to interviews, and sometimes they don't ask enough and they don't know enough. And then they end up in this position where they're doing a lot more than what they expected at the beginning, just because maybe they didn't ask the right questions, or maybe the process wasn't transparent enough for the candidate, for the interviews.
Yeah. And I think what happens if you can come across that way, first of all, it's a bit embarrassing for the employer, but you're not actually like demeaning them. You're not putting them down, but it gives them a reality check. And it's good documentation for if you need to leave or if you're fired, just to explain what happened. And then another really good outcome potentially could be that someone else on your team is sending you work, and since you're new, you're not sure who you're supposed to take directions from, and they'll say, "What do you mean you've been filing papers for the lawyer in the next office?" Or "What do you mean like you've been preparing coffee every morning? Like we're not paying you to do that." And then without you having to do anything, they can help remove those responsibilities and make sure that you're spending your time on what they want.
Exactly. So it's part of like setting clear roles and having clear communication, definitely. Shaina, talking about those defining the roles and what are other actions or some best practices for how businesses can build and manage a successful team while still ensuring that they align to the standards that you have within a company?
I think there are a couple of questions within that. I'll get started where I think you're going, and then correct me if there's something else that you had in mind. But I'll take myself as an example. When I first decided to hire a virtual assistant, I had so many clients who came with terrible experiences. So I was trying very hard. I knew what not to do, and so I put together a list of all the tasks that I was trying to get rid of. Like say for me, it was communication. It was one of the first things. So I thought about, okay, which communications am I doing now that somebody else can do? And it was like answering LinkedIn messages, answering emails, answering WhatsApp messages, things like that. And so and then I said, okay, let me think about like I can't have somebody else answer in my voice, but I do want someone else to be able to respond. And so I put together templates of all the potential scenarios that I could think of. And I, put that together and I said, okay, here are your responsibilities. If this ever changes, or if a question comes up that you don't know, reach out to me and then we'll come up with a new response. Or if there's another responsibility and you want to discuss if that fits into the current salary or not, or say I'm hiring you now for 10 hours a week and you say like, that's delusional, this takes 20 hours a week. Like, let me know at the end of every week if something happens. And so we have a weekly check-in to make sure. And there's been times when that shifted and my VA will say, okay, the work that you gave me this week is 20 hours. Do you want me to do it or not? Or I've been getting messages with completely different questions because your business changed a little because you took on another project. And so that way we've had clear communication. So I think that kind of idea, the difference is whether a job has been, someone else has a position or it's a brand new position. So that's, I think, when it's more complicated, or if it's an existing position and you're taking over someone else's job, it's easier to define it that way.
Yeah. And you've said it right. Like, there's some key aspects that you mentioned during this example that I want to just bring. And one, it's clear communication. You said it. Like, what are the roles? Like, aligning those goals that you need to do within your job and with the other person. Also, I think that was it. You said it. You said setting a clear role because you know what you need and you know what the person that you're hiring has that can also go with the needs of what you're expecting to do. Also, it's important to promote this collaboration, like you guys talking to each other, like, hey, there's a way of doing things, and also providing support, like offering the training and the resources that this person needs. It's really important. And what you said also at the end, like the company or the business can change. So I think that as a key aspect that most people forget is just encouraging for the feedback. So, hey, like, am I doing this the right way? Or am I doing all of the expectations that you had from the beginning? And also that was something I wanted to like bring into the conversation. There is a book that it's called What Color is Your Parachute? And there is a phrase that really marked me. And I think that it's really important. And it's your vocation. It's where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. So it's all about needs and being happy where you are, which sometimes could be a little bit hard, but not impossible.
Yeah. You reminded me of, there's a Japanese word called ikigai. Yeah. And yes, there's like a beautiful Venn diagram, like exactly what you're saying, what the world needs, what you're good at. And also what Gaby was saying earlier, in terms of like, you can enjoy something like that's just a hobby until you're actually good at it. So just because I like knitting doesn't mean I should get hired to do that because I might be terrible at it. Right. So there's like, what the world needs, what the world is willing to pay for, what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And that's exactly, I think, what you're describing.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for bringing that up. Also, as a career consultant and training director at Rockport Institute, we know that you help individuals find their right career or paths that align with their unique strengths, right? Or aspirations. And this approach also empowers individuals to make informed career decisions. So given this expertise in this area, how do you evaluate your clients' unique strengths and aspirations in order to help other professionals with their career goals?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that I don't only rely on my intuition. And I think that's really important because I have clients who come to me and they say, well, I've gone to other career coaches, professionals in the past, and it hasn't helped. And I say like, okay, well, what they do? And they say, well, they ask me a bunch of questions. And I think that it's really important to start with some accurate data and real testing, like on the level of IQ testing, because most of my clients are really self-aware. They're people who are into self-development and career development. And it doesn't mean you don't know yourself, but it's very hard to know what your skills are compared to other people because the things that we're best at are the things that we assume other people have too. And we're surprised when other people don't have those abilities. So it's actually really hard to notice your own talents in a certain way. So we always start with aptitude testing. And that's one of the biggest reasons that drew me to Rockboard Institute. I had read the book by Nicholas Lohr, the founder. It's called The Pathfinder. He has another book called Now What for Teens. And in the book, he just really explained how we're looking at certain cognitive abilities besides just the personality and interests and values, which are all important and part of the conversation. But I always like to start first with data. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that we test for is spatial reasoning, spatial ability, right? So the test is sort of like it's a picture of a box that was unfolded, and then you have to visualize what it would look like if it was folded up. And it's, just the flat. And people who have spatial ability have a very easy time visually imagining what it would look like. And they can do that really well. And other people can't imagine it at all. They would have to take the paper, cut it out, fold it to get it right. People who are high in spatial ability are really good at being architects, being in construction, anything that requires you to think in spatial like ability. People who aren't, like teachers, lawyers, therapists, much more conceptual. I've had so many people who came to me after they went to school, like to be a dentist or something, and they struggled through school and they were miserable in their job and they felt like they weren't good at it. They couldn't figure out why. And we did a test and we saw their spatial ability was so low. Not only did they have to work so much harder than everyone else, they still couldn't be as good as someone who naturally has that. So it's the easiest shortcut to just figuring out, okay, what are your skills? And we test 13 different skills. And then we look at your values, your income needs, your personal goals, where you want to live. And we put that together. But we're starting with some actual data, which is, I think, the most helpful and what makes this people who are trained with Rockboard stand apart from the typical person who just says, I'm a career coach, I'm good at helping people.
So this is something that people will find. It's like a method you guys have in your consultations, right?
Yeah, so it's like a 2-hour test. It's a pretty intense process. It's not based though on like any educational background. So whether or not somebody completed school or went on to higher education, it's not judging things that you learned. It's judging your natural abilities that you were born with. So everybody has things that they're good at, regardless of their opportunities in terms of education. And so we can just see, okay, learning something is easy. Changing your brain is a lot harder.
Absolutely. Shaina, what happens with the people that you guys, that go through this evaluation and maybe the results are not what they expected? Like they still want to pursue certain career that maybe is not best suited for them. What do you do in those cases?
Sure. So I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. Well, sometimes it might feel like that, but I'm here to give people information about themselves and then help them make a decision. So for example, with the spatial example, I'll go with that. One of my clients years ago wanted to be a massage therapist, and her spatial score wasn't that high. Typically, someone who's a massage therapist is going to have a very easy time understanding all the different layers of body, of muscle and tissue in the body, and have more of like a medical kind of brain, which is usually people who are more like that. She was naturally gifted with her hands. She enjoyed it, and she was really motivated and passionate about it. You can compensate with those things, and you can be really good at it. It's just a matter of being aware. The classes that you're taking, learning about the muscular skeleton, parts of the skeleton are going to probably be a little harder for you than other people. And the biggest thing is just like an awareness of where your challenges are going to be, and then you can do whatever you want.
Right. So it makes total sense that you need to keep those things in consideration. What advice would you give people that are actually thinking of starting this exploration of their career path and seeing if there are any ways that they could align to something that they enjoy more? Like, what's the first advice that you would give them?
So many things. What comes to mind first? I think that it's not looking at what's popular.
Okay.
Because, when you read things like, fastest growing trends, cybersecurity is the fastest growing career. But like, what if you don't have the associative memory skill, necessary to be really good at that? It's like saying this is the best city to live in. Like, for who? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have what I'm looking for? So I think like just going by general trends is a big mistake. And the most important thing is to start by looking inside and okay, what do I like? What do I really enjoy? Because I think the things that make people the most money and give them the most success is things that they're passionate about. I'm sure you've seen people who are doing what seems like a very simple profession. I love using a barber as an example. Because somebody who's just like obsessed with being an amazing barber can open multiple shops and then start selling like supplies and create a big brand. And other people would say like, oh, that's such a simple thing. You're going to get paid, whatever minimal amount per haircut. And I've seen people do things like that. And it's like, wow, I love it that they weren't worried about popular opinion. And they first just thought about what is fun for me to do.
Yeah. Now, I like this part because I feel like it's a perception thing also. People that really enjoy their job, they make it look easier. And I've seen this over and over again. People that really enjoy their job, they make it look simple because they're invested in it. They like what they're doing. When they're not working, they're thinking about work, like in a positive way, I want to think. So that when they are performing it, they make it look simple. And that's what people really a lot of times don't consider when trying to change to another career path. I hear this a lot with friends that want to learn web development because it's a very well paid career nowadays. It's a very well paid profession, but it is hard. If you want to learn it, you will eventually learn it. And if you have those core capabilities, like the things that you're saying, those basic strengths, well, it's going to be easier, but overall you have to like it so that you can really immerse yourself in it.
It's a really good point that you're describing what they call in positive psychology a flow state. So I always ask people, like, is there anything that you've ever done or that you do in your life that you completely forget that you're tired or hungry and you're just like, oh my God, the time went by, right? Like that's called being in a flow state. And an optimal job puts you in that state. And I realized that I was doing the right thing when I would finish I was still working a full-time job and then taking on clients in the evening. And I'm the kind of person who is not a night person. And I would be in my office after 2 sessions and it would be like 11 o'clock at night. And I would just be like on a high and just be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like I completely forgot that I was tired. So I think that's like, you need to find that for yourself. And on the opposite side, sometimes you need to recognize when something will just not pay the bills and we need to keep it as a hobby. And that's a challenge.
How do you determine that?
Well, I think if people will pay you for it.
Okay. Very important.
Or if how much you like doing it, because some people love baking cookies, but then you say, would you do that all day if someone paid you for it? They would be like, oh no, like it's my fun. It can't be my job.
Some people think that because they enjoy it so much, it will be hard for them doing it for the job. Like, no, I enjoy this. This is my getaway kind of thing that I do after work. And that's okay. I think
right.
Some people can paint, some people can cook, and that's okay. It's like a way of just being a part of what they do every day. But it depends on the personality. As you said, it's not for everyone. It's not for all people. And I also think that looking at what are your strengths, weakness, interests, and values, it's really important, like for you to know what you really want. And this reminds me of like when you go to a class and probably like it's a ballerina dancing and they make it seem so easy and so gentle and delicate, but go ahead and do it. It's like stand out the way she is doing it. And that's really hard, but that's a good thing, that I do believe that we can learn from other people, which is really important. Also, like having these people that we can learn from, it's really important. And also, Shaina, I wanted to bring a topic about being a work mom that also works from home sometimes. Like, how does that look like? Like, what are the strategies that you found most effective balancing your professional responsibilities with the family life? Like, how do you help other working parents, like going through the same challenges that you have been through?
Yeah, I love the question because it's such a big part of my life and one that most people don't even think to ask about. It's interesting. I get 2 different questions that I think give an insight into what this is like. I have friends who will call me all the time during the day do you want to go out for lunch? They're moms and they don't work, right? And then they say like, oh, but don't you make your own schedule? Like, don't you work for yourself? And I say like, yes, and I'm the toughest boss that I know, right? And then other people ask me like, oh, I find it so hard to work from home because I'm always wanting to like put up a load of laundry or start making supper, like cooking. And I'm like, when I made myself, well, first of all, like I have the opposite problem. I love going to my office. Like I'm sitting now in a, converted garage right attached to my house. And when the day starts, as soon as the kids, leave for school, I'm in there. I usually pack myself a lunch and I have a little fridge in this area so that I don't, forget and leave unless, I'm meeting someone for a lunch meeting. And I stay until like 10 minutes before the first, school bus comes back home. And I find the opposite harder. I find it much harder, like not to go back to work once the kids are home. It's like just one more email or I'll just record one more video and I'll always leave the light on in my office because I always think I'm going to come back. And my husband always gets home much later. He's like, why is the light on? I was like, because I'm still going back to work and it never happened.
Yeah, it's because you enjoy so much doing it. It's like what you said. That's your, what did you say? Float state.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that if you work from home, you really like if you like what you do, then it's not really a problem. And in terms of choosing to work from home is really because I have a family. I always tell people, I not necessarily will be doing this in 20 years when my kids are, grown. But right now, I think that, and people don't expect a career consultant to say that, but a career is just one small part of my life. There's so many other parts, and I don't live for my career. My career is to support the important things in my life. And so as much as I enjoy it, and I would probably do it even if I didn't need, the money, but I still think that like we can't get confused with just the career being the only thing in our lives. It has to support. And I'm always reminding myself of that because it gets confusing.
How do you find balance within that schedule that you have that is so flexible that sometimes you're till late working still, or like you have to juggle around things? And I ask this not only for you as a working mom, because again, I feel like family is usually the other thing that you have to balance life and work with. Like you have work and then eventually you have a family that you have to take care of and that you also want to dedicate time to. But there's people that juggle not just their main job, maybe they have another job that they're also juggling. So how do you balance it out for it to not be overwhelming?
Yeah, the control over my calendar is really important. And so whenever I have like something else, since I can control my own schedule, say a kid has a doctor appointment or, I need to go to the school for a meeting. So I'll block that time out in my calendar in advance. And then so clients, I have an open calendar for my clients. They can choose times and they don't know if it's booked with another client or because I'm taking a kid to therapy or one of my kids is off and we decided, to do a lunch date or just the mommy and me day. So I think it's about, prioritizing like, how much of my time I want to spend doing what. I have, I know people who have taken, say, one day a week, Wednesdays, and that's just for them when their kids are away, just have time to go shopping, take some time to meet friends, get a manicure, just mom things that you don't get to if you're working full time. Personally, I think your calendar is a reflection of your priorities. So looking over at the end of the month of what percentage of time you dedicated to what and just checking in if that's matching your values is a really good exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that overall working from home provides benefits that you can't find in a physical job. And I love revisiting this topic because like there are things from working from home that you're not going to get ever from having a job. Like for example, that time that you save in commuting, I feel like it's so valuable. I was talking this weekend with a friend. I live in Chile. And right now in Chile, they have a new law, like a labor law, that's going to reduce people's working hours from 9 hours, 45 hours a week to 40 hours a week. And some businesses are already implementing them. But what they tell their employees is like, I'll give you 40 hours per week only if you come to work. But if you're working from home, you still have to comply with the 45 hours per week. And it's legal, like they can do it. But then again, what I hear everyone saying, like, okay, I'll stay at home, still working my 9 hours, which is they're still based on results. Because if I choose the 40 hours at work, I'm still losing time to commuting.
Wow.
Those benefits, they just show you like working from home, it has things that you're never going to have working in the office. Because again, and just like you say, being able to be flexible, like you still have hybrid or remote works that are not so flexible in the working hours. But it still allows flexibility because sometimes you can do several things at the same time. And some of those things are related to things that you're doing at home. Like I sometimes cook, I sometimes, do laundry while I'm in a meeting. So it helps. It definitely has some other benefits that you have.
The only downside to not commuting is not getting enough time to listen to podcasts for me.
Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's very important there. I sometimes do it while I'm working, but they have to be like very low, like focus kind of tasks.
Yeah, no, like fun time. Like usually when I'm in the kitchen, my kids like know already like, who I'm listening to, and they already like know the intros by heart and they make fun of them. And so it's entertainment for everyone.
Yeah, it has its pros and cons as everything, but I always like to mention those benefits from working from home.
Yeah, that comparison is fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, Shaina, now that we're talking about these topics that are, a lot related to job satisfaction, those things that make you comfortable and make you want to stick in your job. Like from your experience, what are the best ways to keep remote employees engaged and happy at work? And how can leaders make them feel valued and help them grow professionally?
I love that. So there's a recruiting firm that I actually consult for that I've gotten to see them, how they do this up close. And I think that they've done a good job. One of the things is recognizing that people who really need the social aspect of a job that they're missing. So giving them like those daily meetings. And I've also seen them, the company is called Careerly, and they'll do once a month, like meetups. Everyone is within driving distance, kind of. So they'll do, like a central meeting point of a meetup. I was invited to one a couple of months ago and we just had an amazing time. We went to this like activity place and it was just like this really fun, like arcade, but it was like built for team building. So it was like very interesting team building, and we did a lunch, and it was just an opportunity to get to know everyone in a different setting. So they're doing that monthly, and then there's like a daily meeting, then there's like a weekly Zoom training, and then they'll do nice things like before every holiday, sending really nice gifts in the mail. And like, so I think that those things go very far, and really just facilitating, giving everyone a chance to communicate, because that passing someone by in the hallway in an office, you don't really get that.
Yeah.
So giving opportunity for just like, they'll do like a 30-minute before a meeting, just like a hangout, whoever wants to come on Zoom and chat, which is so nice. I think that's really helpful.
I also think something really important for me will be skill development and career, I guess, where you can feel that you can grow, especially when you're committed to this, your professional growth. And I think it's part of this graded job satisfaction where you can be committed with this organization, where you can feel comfortable sharing your thoughts, giving ideas, and also just being comfortable being you, and that other team members can rely on you, like, hey, yeah, we're going to do this and that. And so that they feel comfortable or also working with you. I think that's really, really, really important.
Yeah, like how they ask, so many companies will ask in a job interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But if you would throw the question back at them and say, well, where do you see me? Like, what opportunities are you giving me? Where will my career be in 5 years? Right? Nobody thinks to answer that question. And when I work with businesses, which sometimes I'll have businesses want me to evaluate their people, and I'll have one-on-one meetings with each person. And I always ask them, okay, like, how is this company serving your career? Like, what are you thinking about? And I get fascinating answers. And if the company's opening to listen to it, they risk losing a good employee, but they risk losing them anyways. So they may as well do it on good terms. And maybe there's an opportunity where they can keep them for longer because they're actually thinking about what's this? What am I doing for this person's career?
Yeah. And do you have any example probably where you can think this person would be the right fit for this company and vice versa, but probably something happened and things didn't work out because of a specific topic or specific thing that was going on?
So I think I have like the opposite example. There was a family business that that asked me to come in and do some evaluations. And so a lot of the people who worked there were there simply because they were family, not because they really had chose the career or anything like that. So I had a chance to go and one of them was actually a grandchild of the owner, and it was already up to the third generation. And I explained to him, based on our conversation, on seeing his results from testing and from what he told me, I said, listen, what you're doing is a really bad use of your talents. You're struggling to do things that don't come naturally to you and the things that you like doing. So he was able to take that back to his grandfather, and they actually decided to open a new department with his abilities. And it was a win-win. Like, they were happy to keep him there, and they were happy to find, like, everybody was unhappy with his work, and it was just like, oh, okay, tell us what you want to do, we'll do it for you, which was incredible.
Maybe they knew they needed to change, but they didn't know how.
Yeah, they were obviously open to it. That's a great example.
And I do think a part of this can come from emotional intelligence. So to conclude this conversation, we want to talk a little bit of the role of the emotional intelligence. And as it's recognized as a cornerstone of successful leadership. But how does it impact coaching sessions? Like, what role do you believe emotional intelligence plays in effective leadership, and how to incorporate it into coaching sessions?
Amazing topic, and a great question. Obviously, we know the research shows, I think from Gallup, that people who the higher, like, they have an emotional intelligence test. So if you take the test, you get a number score. For every number you score higher, you actually earn, I believe, another $1,300 a year.
Oh, wow.
It's direct, like, a person's emotional intelligence is directly tied to their earnings. And they've done this in many countries with both genders across the world. And so I think that in coaching, the way it comes up is people often leave jobs because of a conflict that they didn't know how to resolve or communicate, or they were being mistreated. And sometimes it's just a matter of giving them the skills and helping them figure out, okay, why are you feeling not good? And some people, for example, really need that thank you every day, and to be told that you're making a difference, and the team is so much better because you're there. And if they recognize that, they can tell their boss, like, hey, I really like the job, I don't feel appreciated. And then there's something that can be improved. I mean, and they themselves, if they're in a leadership management position, and I think everyone has the option, no matter how high or low your job is, to develop leadership skills. And it's doing things like that. And emotional intelligence is really being aware of yourself, of your feelings, and of other people's feelings, and being able to manage that. So it's just so much about, like, the social knowledge and paying attention to those things, and realizing that much more important than IQ and being smart is knowing how to manage with other people. That's, like, the biggest skill, especially with AI and everything else. Like, that's one thing that is really valuable for people to develop.
Yeah, like I feel like it totally aligns. I have, like, my main job, which is not this podcast. My main job is I work in operations, and I have to train managers actually in their new functions. And a lot of times they're junior, like, they're people that haven't managed teams before, but they're just, like, preparing now. And something that I always have to reinforce with them, like, I always have to reinforce that knowledge, is that managers, more than, like, supervisors, they have to be team leaders. And a big key to like, an essential key to being a great leader is being able to read the room that you're in. Exactly. Like, just know the capabilities of the team that you're working with, being very self-aware of your own capabilities, and seeing how you can support those team members do their job the best. And sometimes it's going to look, for a member, like you having to give them feedback, positive feedback constantly, so that they can stay motivated. And then for other team members, it may be pressuring them, because a lot of teams, like, a lot of people work great under pressure, and actually they thrive. Like, they like being pressured, and they like doing more things. So it's actually learning how to individually approach each member and seeing what's their best way to perform, and then supporting them in that process. So it's hard, but you definitely need emotional intelligence for that, because you can't treat everyone the same way and expect them to deliver the same way. Because again, everyone has different emotional needs. And even it resounds even in their work life.
Yeah, that's so well said.
Yeah. So this is a great conversation, as we said before. Unfortunately, we're reaching the end of our episode. As we wrap up, let's reflect on the valuable insights that Shaina has shared with us today. We've covered several important topics like effective remote hiring, job satisfaction, and career development.
Well, Shaina gave us actionable tips on hiring remote team members, fostering positivity at work, and setting career goals. Her advice on balancing work, family, and personal life was very helpful.
Thank you for being with us today, Shaina. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you. Thank you for this podcast. It's such a great resource for people. I'm thrilled to have been a little part of it today.
Yeah, and thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Just remember to subscribe for more on remote work, career growth, and personal development.
Okay. Until next time, guys, keep sharing your career journey. That wraps another episode of the Hired Hub podcast. We hope you found today's discussion empowering and insightful. Remember, success in the world of remote work is within your reach, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice and engaging conversations. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to help us reach more people who can benefit from the Hired Hub podcast.